So this is a piece by Anderson that he wrote a bunch of flute methods and studies and things. And this particular piece is a piece that I sort of put off learning for most of my life, but I used the pandemic as a great excuse to spend a lot of time on it. So it's a challenge, but I really love this piece.
Wow, David, amazing, amazing. I'm glad I don't have to try to dance to that. Wow, that was so beautiful. I just see all these fairies kind of going through the air and angels and joining us. Thank you so much. We are so lucky today to have two real masters with us. David Lonkovich, who you just heard on the flute. David played at my wedding 20 years ago, David, which was so lovely. We'll never forget that. And Roy, our own Roy Berkowitz, who I just simply think of as a master teacher. And we're so grateful to have you here, Roy. We always know we're going to leave opened, enlightened, reminded, and in a different state of consciousness. So we thank you for bringing that to us. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jane West. I am the platform assistant today. I've tried to decorate my, this is my hearth at home. You can see the little stockings behind me to bring in the spirit of the season. And I can see many of you in red have done that too. It's very festive. It makes you. I'm going to light the candle, and today's Advent message is about peace. So let me light the candle. Again, this is from John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. May we all open our hearts to the peace of the season. May today there be peace within. May we trust our highest power that we are exactly where we are meant to be. May we not forget the infinite possibilities that reside within us. May we use those gifts that we have received and pass on the love that has been given to us. May we be content knowing that Christ resides within each of us. May this presence settle into our bones and allow our souls the freedom to sing and to dance. May we move forward knowing that all is unfolding in divine order. And so it is. Amen. And now it's my great pleasure to turn it back over to the one and only David Lankovich for some more flute music.
So this will be a fantasy by Georg Philipp Tillmann. It's a short 3-movement piece, fantasy in B flat major.
morning, precious ones. Gratitude. David and his magic flute, Jane and her splendid red, seeing Phil and Dominic, and many of you. Now, a friend told me gratitude is the theme for November. What are you doing talking about it in December? Well, one of the recent bulletins that Jan sent out on Thursday, and I've learned to scroll down on my iPhone to see all the things that she had on there. There are some comics, there are some inspirational things, and there was something about gratitude that was short but powerful, and I needed it. And so I decided I wanted to spend time with some of the points. It resonated for me. And my experience in doing these talks is when it resonates to me, it seems to resonate for others. So I'm bringing gratitude into December. All right. So I want to go back a few years when a friend who used to travel into New York City every day for work, she told me of this odd thing she saw when she was traveling on the tracks of the Harlem line. She looked out the train window. There was a billboard that seemed very out of place. It loomed over the ever-congested Cross Bronx Expressway, and it had one single misspelled word. Gratitude. Gratitude. Now, as an ex-English teacher, she freaked out. But we figured for what it cost, the mistake must have been on purpose. And indeed, it was. That billboard was in all 5 boroughs of the city, part of a Paint the City project with a New York City-based artist named Peter Tunney. He put up that message because he was tired of seeing billboards advertising other priorities like expensive clothing and shoes and watches. He wanted to remind people of another priority, something that he thought was getting lost in our society: gratitude. Indeed, Cicero said gratitude is not only the greatest of the virtues, but the parent of all the others. So this huge billboard in New York City reminded my friend to pause and think for a moment as her train whizzed forward before she went to her 12-plus-hour workday, to think about what that word meant for her in her busy life. How do we make gratitude a part of everyday reality, especially make it a part of everyday reality in these challenging days, and not just a convenient theme every November? Reverend Ruth Wallace talks about gratitude, and she says, too often we think of gratitude as the result of something. Someone does something nice for us and we feel grateful, right? That, she says, is passive gratitude. Sometimes gratitude is a response to something, reaction if someone does something or if something wonderful or good happens, or like me, sometimes expressing gratitude about that something wasn't as awful as I thought it would be in my less unity moments, or that I wasn't as embarrassed as I thought I would be. Very grateful. But we wait till we have evidence, till after the fact. I'll be grateful if. I'll be grateful when. We don't need to wait till we have evidence. In 1 Thessalonians, Paul reminds us to give thanks in all circumstances. All circumstances. Not just when the police officer doesn't give us a speeding ticket, not just when our labs come back and the blood counts look good, not just when we've fallen and not broken anything, in all circumstances. So we're not just talking about an attitude of gratitude. Reverend Ruth Wallace goes a step further and she advocates active gratitude, conscious gratitude. And she says, active gratitude is a way of living, a way of being. When we choose active gratitude, we are choosing to change our energy. Or as a contemporary proverb puts it, It is not happy people that are thankful. It's thankful people who are happy. That practicing gratitude, actively practicing, living gratitude versus an attitude of gratitude invites joy into our life. And who here doesn't need a little bit of that these days? Like a poet writes, to speak gratitude is courteous and pleasant. To enact gratitude is generous and noble. But to live gratitude is to touch heaven. That's making gratitude a verb. To do thanks instead of giving thanks. Perhaps that's why a clinical psychologist says that gratitude isn't a virtue, it's a survival skill. Now, as someone 69 years old, that resonated profoundly for me. Gratitude as a survival skill. It's helped me balance these past few months. In the Revealing Word, which is a dictionary of metaphysical terms, it reminds us that being thankful for what we have increases the inflow. Gratitude is a great mind magnet. Just as Charles Fillmore wrote, it has been found that a person increases their blessings by being grateful for what they have. Gratitude, even on the mental plane, is a great magnet. When gratitude is expressed from the spiritual standpoint, it is powerfully augmented. As our own Jan Smoot has told me, when I feel stressed, I just go to gratitude. It's one of her survival skills. In fact, gratitude appears to be a strong determinant of people's well-being and one of the strongest links with mental health of any character trait. Numerous studies suggest grateful people are more likely to have high levels of happiness, lower levels of stress and depression, that it's a natural antidepressant. So when we express gratitude and we receive the same, and that's important, giving and receiving, right? Our brain releases dopamine, serotonin, two crucial neurotransmitters responsible for making us feel good. So by consciously practicing gratitude, we can help those neural pathways to strengthen themselves. For gratitude does change the neural structures in the brain, makes us feel happier and more content. And remember, when we come here to listen each week, when we study the course, when we read the thunder of silence, we're retraining our brains. We are rewiring our brain. That goes along with Charles Fillmore's statement that an attitude of gratitude announces the realization that we are in heaven. Well, that's even better than touching heaven. Back to the attitude of active versus passive gratitude. The artist who did the billboard talks about gratitude as an action. So, when you walk your dog, look for 3 things to be grateful for. When you're out running errands, look for 3 things to be grateful for. Look for, don't wait. In other words, gratitude is our forethought, not our afterthought, says Reverend Wallace. Gratitude as a forethought, not an afterthought. Expressing, feeling gratitude before the experience, before getting evidence of success or pleasure or winning, a proactive response. Like Mary Taylor Brown says, in the same way that I'm willing to thank my husband for a gift even before I have opened it, because I trust his love of me, I am willing to thank God for my life even before I know how it turns out. Wow. Giving thanks in all circumstances, indeed. What would you say your style was around expressing gratitude? When do you tend to express it? I know for me, it is often an afterthought. As I said before, many of us give ourselves permission to experience gratitude when we're happy with the way things are going, when people are treating us well, when the universe is bringing us great gifts. It's easy for me to be grateful at those times when I approve of what's happening in my life. But what happens when we're facing painful or challenging circumstances, when life is unfair, frightening, hurtful, when there's a pandemic. Often, the act of feeling grateful is conditional. It means nothing if when the slightest thing goes wrong, we become angry with spirit. It means nothing if when we don't have something turn out the way we want, we angrily conclude that things are against us and forget everything that has blessed us that day. For me, I get so wrapped up in my discomfort and anxiety at times that I forget that I can be uncomfortable and grateful at the same time. I'm going to say that again. For me, you're welcome to listen. I can be uncomfortable and grateful at the same time. This is something I need to hang on to. It makes life so much easier and less of a struggle when we can acknowledge that we might be in an uncomfortable or unhappy time and also allow our consciousness to notice and feel gratitude for the lessons we're learning, for the friends who are supporting us, or the unexpected blessings of our challenge. As Amalia used to say, I can't wait to see what good comes out of this, as I stared at her with an open mouth. Meister Eckhart says, if the only prayer you say in your life is thank you, that would suffice. Thank you. Anne Lamott calls thank you part of her prayer, which in its entirety is thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But for reasons of brevity, she says, thanks. Reverend Wallace goes on to say, gratitude is the dial we set our hearts to as we live our daily lives. It is the precondition of our perception. The precondition of our perception. We all know the importance of perception in unity thinking. We create our feelings, reactions, our life experiences through our thoughts, which give birth to our perceptions. If we see through the lens of negativity, shame, fear, then everything gets processed through those lenses. We create more of the same. Now, doesn't that resonate with our thoughts being prayers? Expressing gratitude is a form of prayer. If you want your life to be different, your prayer must be different. What flows through your attention sculpts your brain, says Rick Hansen. Therefore, controlling your attention may be the single most effective way to shape your brain, your mind, and thus your world. Now, this has seemed especially challenging to me this year, but truth doesn't change. I need to choose to change my mind instead. Remember, Emmett Fox says that thought is destiny. You think and your thoughts materialize as experience. Unknown to you, you are actually weaving the pattern of your destiny. Yikes, that's a heavy responsibility, but that's what we believe, folks. So, what's the tapestry like that you have woven with your thoughts? How might you describe it to someone? If we were in a museum, how would I know which was your tapestry versus somebody else's? Remember that by changing your thoughts, you can add new colors and new textures. Lesson 284 of the course says, I can elect to change all thoughts that hurt. We can change the stitching, the colors, the quality of the threads of our tapestry. It just means we need to choose again, like the last chapter of the course says, to choose between your weakness and the strength of Christ in us. In every difficulty, all distress, and each perplexity, Christ calls to you and gently says, beloved, choose again. Correct your thinking. A miracle is just that, a correction of a misperception, an error in thinking. This feels bad. This hurts. I am willing to change my mind about this situation. God, help me see this as you would see it. Help me choose again. When we choose from our Christ-centered awareness, that shift is truly miraculous. For then peace, that Jane had talked about today at Advent, peace can truly flow through us. Now, for us to be able to do that, it's really crucial that we develop a witness, an observer, to look down on what the course calls the battlefield. I can look down and watch the battle in my mind, witness it without being embroiled in it, observe from above, and that awareness itself is what Eckhart Tolle calls our higher self. And that's our home. Our higher self is our home, even if we spend a lot of time on the battlefield. See, we don't find ourselves in the midst, our higher selves in the midst of the battle, attacking, protecting, surrounded by fear and chaos, with that committee in my head chattering out of control, where our thoughts and reactions feel safe. Last week, Reverend Sandy told us we hand over the Christ self to the thinking self. That's why Tolle says the most important thing that can happen to us is separating thinking from awareness, because thinking and awareness are two separate experiences. So instead of getting lost in the thoughts, the wanting, the anger, the fear, the needing to protect, to become the awareness behind it. Or for me, I think of it as above it. Psychologists call it self-distancing. Psychologically distancing yourself from a situation that's happening to you, because when we're immersed in the situation, we are zoomed in so tightly, it's hard to have a big picture perspective. Be not the voice, says Tolle, but the one who is aware of it. In other words, don't hand over your Christ self to that voice. Being grateful. Great, full of greatness. Maybe when I am in a place of gratitude, I am full of greatness. For gratitude puts me above circumstances or the situation, no matter what they are or appear to be. When I'm connected to Source, however I define that power, I am greater than the situation, the adversity, and I am my higher self. I am. Again, the voices in our heads are not who we are. Who we are is the one who is aware of them. We are not the thinker, we are the awareness. The presence that witnesses those states, that is our higher self. For we then choose from the spark of divinity, not from the ashes of ego. We choose as one who is healer, not an attacker. And we choose as one who has been resurrected, not as one who has been crucified. And doesn't that in itself make us full of greatness? Have you ever thought your ability to choose again was something to be grateful for? I think it is. Viktor Frankl, who I've quoted many times, other speakers have quoted, he wrote, "Man's Search for Meaning," has one of the most powerful quotes I'd ever read before I came to Unity. Everything can be taken from us but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in any set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. He wrote that after his family was killed at a concentration camp and after he was freed by the Allies from one. Dr. Edith Eva Eger, who was also in a concentration camp, she came to the United States, became a psychologist. She's in her 90s now. She read Dr. Frankl's book. He became a mentor and friend. And in her book, she echoes it. In her book, The Choice, which Carol Frampton spoke about when she gave her powerful talk a few months ago. And what Dr. Eger tells us is, even then in my prison in hell, I could choose how I responded. I could choose my actions and speech. I could choose what I held in my mind. No one can take away from you what you've put in your own mind. That's something her mother had told her when she was a little girl. No one can take away from you what you've put in your own mind. The last of the human freedoms. Our ability to choose again is something to be grateful for. As our own K. Wood himself told me after he read something, he quoted this quote saying, "As spiritual beings, our superpower is choice." Something else Dr. Egger said that I think is so relevant these days, when some people I know are using the things that they have to be grateful for, and as we know, we have many things, but they're using them to beat themselves up, to add to feelings of guilt at those times they've been feeling low or sorry for themselves during the pandemic. I have so much to be grateful for. What's wrong with me? I shouldn't feel like this. Well, acknowledging those feelings are important. Acknowledging them without shoulding on yourself. Remember, the 11th commandment, thou shalt not should on thyself. That was in the tablet that Moses broke, commandments 11 to 15. It also included, thou shalt eat pork. Dr. Egger writes, there is no hierarchy of suffering. There's nothing that makes my pain worse or better than yours, no graphs on which we can plot the relative importance of one sorrow versus another. People say to me, things in my life are pretty hard right now, Dr. Egger, but I have no right to complain. It's not Auschwitz. She tells us that this kind of comparison can lead us to minimize or diminish our own suffering. I suggest that we can use gratitude for balance and gentle perspective to help us move from the depths, versus as a way to diminish our feelings or our experience during this challenging time. That's one way of using gratitude as a survival skill. In the early 1990s, gratitude became redefined for me. Rather, it really became broadened, its definition. As many of you know, I was working with people recently diagnosed with HIV, and as many of you know, in those days, many people died soon after diagnosis. One client who had a difficult life and who was very sick told me he was grateful that that day he could go to the mailbox himself and get his mail rather than his neighbor having to do it. Or the client who saw HIV as a gift or a blessing. As many of my clients told me, it motivated her to stop using heroin. That was an active addiction she had for over 25 years. For others, it helped them develop deep relationships for the first time or reconnect with estranged family. And then there was the client who was in the hospital dying, who was so grateful. Grateful that they served rice pudding for dessert instead of that crappy Jell-O. Grateful for such a small thing. Rice pudding, really? Come on. Not small at all. When we are grateful, our perspective on everything changes. It's like gratitude turned what he had into enough and more. To live gratitude is to touch heaven. Now, of course, God, spirit, higher power doesn't need our gratitude any more than it needs my help. But the Course reminds us we need to develop our weakened ability to be grateful. We cannot appreciate spirit. God does not need your appreciation, you do. Think about it. Believing that a God needs our appreciation is describing human characteristics to that presence. Now, doesn't that limit us by limiting our God? A year or so ago, I was going through a dark time, and a friend suggested that before I go to bed, I think of 3 things that happened during the day that I could be grateful for. Sometimes it's a tiny thing, sometimes bigger. Doesn't matter. Could be, oh, I got great news from my cardiologist, or it could be, Yay, I made it through that green light at Glebe that takes forever to turn green. Doesn't matter. To end the day with focusing on being thankful, no matter what the day has been like for me, is a major retraining of how my mind has worked. Because those moments of being in gratitude are a lovely way for me to go to sleep, with visions of sugar plums dancing in my head. Now, active gratitude, I guess, would be me being grateful for the next day. We can be in discomfort and be grateful. We can be experiencing challenges and loss and still be grateful. For my friends, gratitude is bigger than the condition in our lives. The Washington Post asked people to describe the pandemic in 6, 7 words. One woman wrote, "Numbers rise, but the sun does too." Now, that person, gratitude is certainly bigger than the conditions in her life. Though really my favorite one was social distancing myself from the fridge. Numbers rise, but the sun does too. Now that's GRATTTTITUDE. How many T's in your gratitude? We are now in a season that always brings with it a heightened awareness and the importance of giving thanks. And this paves the way to Christmas. From Thanksgiving to Christmas, from living in gratitude to the birth of Christ, that is, the birth of a new consciousness within us. I offer this. Every time we give gratitude, we are paving the way for that new consciousness, for the birth of Christ within us. When we are grateful, give gratitude, it opens us up to experiencing a miracle, to experiencing a change in our perception, taking us out of judgment, anxiety, suffering, refocusing us on the now and our divine nature in this moment. Are you ready to do that? To shift from conditional gratitude to gratitude beyond conditions, to hone your survival skill of gratitude? Are you ready to touch heaven? Emmett Fox wants you to know that God will be ready the moment you are. May we be grateful in our thoughts. May we be grateful in our speech. May we be grateful in our heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You will join me for a meditation. Time to enter the silence, to let the chair and floor support you, to allow it to support you, and to notice what it's like to let yourself be supported, and to breathe with intention and with ease. Notice your breath. Notice what moves as you breathe in and out, as you breathe gratitude in, and as you breathe love out into the world. Thoughts come and thoughts go. That's what thoughts do. And you can let them flow past like leaves in a stream. No need to grasp, to hold on, or to attach to any. Take a moment and silently note things that you are grateful for. No need to attach to any particular one, but just let them float by. And now think of things you would not normally think of being grateful for. Maybe something that hasn't happened yet. Whatever comes to mind, welcome it. No need to figure it out, to unwrap it, to question yourself. Become the observer, the Christ self, not the thinking self. And now, sit in the silence, observing whatever comes up for you and welcoming it as you let it come and go as a cloud passes in the sky. I may be experiencing challenges, but I can still be grateful. For gratitude is bigger than any condition in my life. When I enter into gratitude, I become gratitude. I become full of greatness as I ignite that spark of divinity within me and let divine peace flow through me to bless the world. And for that, I am so grateful. I am so grateful. I am so grateful. And so it is.
We praise God and give thanks for his supply and support. We open our minds to the inflow of the abundant spiritual essence of all things.
This is a Telemann fantasy in C major, also in 3 movements, 3 short movements.
If you would join me now for a closing prayer, you may want to close your eyes. Dear God, how grateful we all are for this community, for Roy, for David, for the messages that we hear, for Jan's unending shepherding of us every week, making it so easy for all of us to be here and to join with each other. We are truly grateful, and we move forward this week choosing to be gratitude, choosing to acknowledge 3 things we're grateful for as we drift into sleep every night. Choosing gratitude as who we are and not conditions we wait for. We give thanks. Amen.